Oh, I'm gonna switch over to my other account. How about that? How about I chat as training is blank
Go for it.
instead of decks and drafts?
Yeah. Hey, and I think we might be live.
Nice.
Fantastic. So, hello everyone. It's episode 5. Or 5 months. Nearly half a year we have now done this. That's
You're still stuck with me.
yeah, I know.
The
One
hell?
day. One day. Um One day we will interrupt the introduction for a sponsor spot. But it is not this day. Um
No.
So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Luke, I can see you're in the chat already. Our our constant viewer. Nice to have you. I'm sure we'll jump into some discussion later on. But in the meantime, welcome to May's ID Update. My name's Tom.
Joey. Or Joe. Or Joseph. I go by all of it. I
Whatever
keep trying. I
works.
keep trying to turn it to Joey, and then I get here and I remember it's the ID update with Tom and Joe, and you made a whole thing. I guess it's Joe this time. We're going Joe this time.
I'll change it to Fred next time, and we'll just start making it more and more ridiculous.
Perfect. Like I can't be Joey because that like Tom and Joey, like because everyone's gonna say Tom and Jerry anyway. Because it
Okay,
sounds very
that's
similar.
this is very true. But well, it now seems a little bit out of place. But without further ado, let's roll the intro. There's only one place for the breaking news in the world of instructional design. The ID Update with Tom and Joe. All the news you never knew you never needed. Only on IDT. There we go. So, yes, episode 5, and I think we've got a few things to discuss this week. Picking up where we left off last time about technology, there have been a few updates to some tools that needed some updating following their previous updates that didn't update very well.
Sorry for my excitement from last time. If you followed up on the excitement for Camtasia 2021, I apologize profusely for that. That was
So
bad.
yeah, some of us went and bought the software based on that recommendation. We're pretty pissed.
We'll talk about that. I'm sorry. That's on
We
me.
certainly will.
Even Luke acknowledges that your room is different, and it's that there's daylight there.
There is both daylight in the room, and the wall behind me has changed because I took down the guitars and put up a massive glass whiteboard. So the room has gone from, well, it's still got all the same stuff in it, but now I can write on one of the walls without getting shouted at.
Is it just all on the floor now? Is that what happened?
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That's like this side of the room off camera, just stuff everywhere, just piles of, well, everything. But there are two parts to this show, as always. There is the ID, there is the learning stuff, but there's also the beer, which I know we all look forward to. Well, for me, end of day Friday. I know for you, Joey, it's middle of the day-ish. So, what are you drinking?
No, future employers, really. It's 8 o'clock here, too.
We'll edit that bit out in post. It's not like it's a live event.
Oh. Oh. I'll find out later in interviews. Since we get so many people who watch the show afterwards, it'll be a surprise.
Yeah, that was, we were speaking about just before we went live then, that we do a live show every month. Like 80 to 90% of the viewership of this video will watch it in a non-live format. So whether or not it's a very effective live platform or not, we're not sure, but people are watching, so that's good. Like Luke's push, it now looks like I'm a busy person. It does, doesn't it? It looks really great. What's actually on that board is just like stuff I've bought on Amazon. It's just a glorified shopping list.
Did my camera go out of focus again? I'm gonna flicker this bad boy real quick.
No worries. Well, you sort your camera, and I'm gonna talk beer.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna be enjoying, at least initially today, a can of The Beast. So The
Nice.
Beast from S43 Brewery. They are based down in, unless I'm mistaken, Bristol, which is just down the road from us. I am mistaken. These guys are based in Durham, which is not just down the road from us. It's a long blooming way away, but it's relatively local. And this is a smoked Russian Imperial Stout, clocking in at, for a stout, rather high at 12%. So this is gonna be a nice one. What are you having?
That's a cool looking can, by the way. Can I see that
It
again?
is seriously cool, like simple, but so cool. It's
I
got a
like
really
that
nice,
like the matte finish
the matte
instead
on
of
the
the normal
shiny
gloss.
can. Yeah, this is it. That's graphic design and beer. This we're now changing the direction of this show. It's real
Right? It's
nice.
very like 20s, 30s, 40s monster movie font look as
Yes,
well.
very
I just see
much.
with the fade, the beast.
The
Anyway,
beast.
keeping it dark. This is a tradition that normally happens around my birthday, which is June 15th. They're a couple weeks early this time. So for my friends over at Verboten Brewing and Barrel Project, emphasis on Barrel Project, I bring you cake or death. Cake or death. Bourbon barrel aged imperial chocolate stout, clocking in at a solid 16 or 13% alcohol. It's a 16-ounce can. That's where that came from. But yeah, dark chocolate, milk chocolate, Tahitian vanilla, aged in bourbon barrels, a bunch of chocolate husks, and it's just happy birthday. Happy birthday to me.
That does sound pretty nice.
My glass is from our friends at our mutual friends. I love these guys. This brewery is awesome because they're all Charles Dickens themed. So
cool.
a lot of the beers, all the stuff they have on the walls are very Charles Dickens, as far as like stories and books and stuff like that.
Very cool. I once again have my very, very boring just mug of beer. I feel like I'm going to have to invest in some glasses if we're going to keep doing this segment of the show.
Send you some. I've got my pint glass collection, so.
Oh,
Dark.
it's always nice to watch something pour that heavily.
Right? And then like even the foam is just, it's not that white Guinness foam.
Nope. This feels like the kind of beer where once I filled the glass, I could pretty much tip it upside down and it would stay in there in some way. Doesn't feel fully liquid. Oh, that smokiness is definitely there.
This is very sweet. So cheers, sir, and cheers, audience.
Cheers,
Thank
everyone.
You for joining us.
Beer near microphone, Tom.
Oh
yes, I know, and I finally got my microphone back after so long of having to deal with my second choice. All the shows up until now, I've been using a Rode Procaster, which is a perfectly nice microphone, great microphone even. But I finally got my my SM7B back after lending it a very long time ago. And they were like, "Oh, I've remembered. I've got your microphone." It's like, "Yeah, I didn't forget." And now it's home where it belongs. But yes, no, the perspective would suggest the beer was a lot closer to the microphone than you might think, Luke. It's fine. Everything's safe.
I just stick with my baby blue. I like my blue. But the first time I had to return it because it picked up static for no reason. But they were kind enough to replace it for me. It took 2 months, but
yes, well, that's fairly standard, unfortunately, isn't it? Maybe that's a topic we can discuss at some point. Actually, is streaming and just general media equipment from an ID perspective.
There you go.
Because
that'd be fun. Hey, do you guys record from home and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I know Luke does. Luke's using a Blue Yeti. Awesome. I think they are super popular. But yeah, I know Luke does because he's done a podcast. He's got a course out on the Evolve authoring tool, where he recorded all the videos on there. So
I haven't had a chance to look at that yet. It has been in the back of my mind though. It's been a little crazy for me.
Well, it's well worth it. I jumped in and it's solid stuff. It really is. So anyway, let's dive into probably one of our bigger topics, and certainly the topic I had the most fun preparing for.
Yeah.
Kind of,
Sort
anyway.
of. I got really depressed real fast though.
I was going to say,
yeah. I want to do this.
So last time, assuming you were all here, all three of you were here last time. We spoke about setting up your home office or working as an ID, what you needed. We spoke a lot about skills, technology, and we kind of glanced across the fact that computers cost more than houses at the moment. And so we said we'd go away and sort of come up with what we think are the ideal ways of building out a PC or a Mac, if you were gonna buy a Mac for some reason, as an instructional design that we'd recommend. So, I mean, just as an initial starting point, the market's insane.
Yes. Chip shortages. Everyone's home, they're stuck home, so everyone's just buying up their rig and all of that. There's a lot of, with people having to work from home anyway, there's a lot of that going on where it's like, oh, I need to make some sort of investment. And everything that has some sort of collectability or value or scarcity blew up, which in this case are things like graphic cards and I don't even know what the heck else. I play card games, and all of them went nuts. Freaking baseball cards are I don't know. Rich people are bored at home, is what happened.
Absolutely. I mean, the same's been true of streaming equipment, microphones, like high-end audio equipment has become difficult to purchase because the manufacturers just don't stockpile it. They tend to build a little bit ahead of demand. So if you've wanted to buy really good speakers or a high-end microphone or anything like that recently, there's been a wait. But I do think
I remember beginning of the pandemic how hard it was to get a webcam.
This is it.
Nope.
It just was not happening. It started off with your Logitech C900 webcams, and it ended up... I mean, I know some people that were out there kind of buying mirrorless DSLRs, which is a great move, except they were just doing it for Zoom meetings. They didn't want to produce media. They just needed something that worked. So they were out there spending...
my C900.
I know, right? So they're out there spending 500 quid. This is the thing. They're the best webcam, maybe, but webcams as a whole are just such bad tech now. And they shouldn't be. I get really annoyed with it because there's no reason for webcams to be so bad. It's like even when a laptop goes, there's a 720p camera in this, and you're like, that's appalling. What? Who is doing that in 2021?
I don't know how many cameras my phone has, but they're all better.
Exactly. And this is kind of a message to people is like, don't buy if you're gonna buy a webcam, just use your phone and download the EasyCam app or whichever one works with your type of phone.
I use IVCam, which is decent.
Exactly. Madness otherwise. But I do think the PC market got hit particularly hard. It got hit by a number of things. It got hit by the pandemic. It got hit by, and you think about it, pretty much everything in terms of graphics cards, CPUs, fans, cases, RAM is manufactured in Taiwan, which is one of the first places. It also came off the tail end of the Lunar New Year over there. So they just had a big holiday. Then they closed down for the initial wave of the pandemic. Then we got hit with the rise of crypto mining, which pushed the demand for all the computer components when there was already a lack of supply. And then we had the underlying lack of supply in terms of silicon substrate for chip manufacturing. Everything hit in 2020. On top of that, everyone released new stuff. So in theory, it's a great time to buy a computer. Intel have finally... Intel have finally not just the winners of the CPU world, which means there's competition. AMD have released some of the best CPUs ever. AMD also, for the first time, again, in 5 or 6 generations, have released competitive GPUs. Nvidia blew them out of the water with ridiculous GPUs, but all of this landed in like a 2-month period. with really exciting price tags that no one could ever purchase anything at.
I feel a little dirty with you saying with the Intel versus AMD, because I've been an Intel kid for ages, and when I was prepping up for this, I was kind of looking through. I was like, crap, if I get to build mine, I'm an AMD guy.
Yep.
Felt dirty. But I mean, I've got a Mac over here that feels dirty, and
I've still got the one on the wall. I can see it behind the camera. And in fact, there's Luke. Really good point actually. Apple came out with their M1 Apple Silicon, which is ARM based. So that was another draw on the limited supply of silicon. So in fact, you know what? I'm gonna blame the current state of affairs on Apple. It's all their fault.
Perfect. No, I like it. I like it.
But yes, they did also come out with their M1 stuff. To much. Ah, yes. I got the. Is that the MacBook one, isn't it? And I got the Mini.
16. Yeah, I don't know, whatever the heck it is. But I know that there is a shortage of computers. If you want to buy an Apple, I got one.
Just follow the eBay link in the description.
Yeah, you're gonna have to, jailbreak it, crack it, but that's okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's in terms of technology, there have been big jumps forwards. It's never been a better time to buy a computer. Availability has kind of killed that, unfortunately. So unless you're a frickin' millionaire, now is not a great time to buy a computer. Hashtag not sponsored by Apple. Yeah, probably not a likely future sponsor there, Luke, I don't think.
No.
Not really their kind of crowd. Although, some of the conclusions at the end of this section, from me anyway, might somewhat argue against that and against my better judgment. So anyway, we said we'd come up with a few different options. So shall we start with the kind of, I'm starting out as an ID, I don't want to spend any money I don't need to.
Yeah, so I figured the way we could do this, so like I said, we came up with 3, which is the I'm an ID, but I don't have money, the basic. This doesn't mean bare, at least for me, this didn't mean bare minimum. This just meant basic. What would get me going and get me to not want to throw the computer against the wall if I'm doing projects.
Yeah.
We also came up with a beast version. At least I did. I don't know, did you? I came up. Let's pretend that everything was in stock.
Well,
and we had money.
I came up with the what my build is version. What I would consider optimum. I do have a beast list, which I have for my own personal enjoyment. I wasn't going to share that.
I have my, I have my what I would get right now build.
Yeah,
which is kind of my mid range.
Yeah, and I've put together some final thoughts about what I would actually do now. Because I mean, for anyone that's ever been around when I've spoken about something like this before, I'm not sure where you are on this, Joey. I'm pretty much always been on the build it yourself. More control.
Just recently.
Yeah. So have you built a PC before?
So the one I'm on now is the first PC I ever built.
How did you find it?
What do you mean? Sorry?
How did you find building it?
Oh, so first things first, I had a buddy help me. So I found it real easy because he's done it before. It wasn't bad at all, actually. The challenge was kind of knowing some of the smaller parts that you just don't really think about, like your power unit. I don't always think about the power unit. I don't think that it's a separate thing.
Whereas in actual fact, if you speak to people who like computers, they'll tell you that if you're going to cheap out on anything, don't let it be the power unit. That should be the thing you never skimp on.
So honestly, for those of you who are brand new, who are like, that seems intimidating, it's not bad. It was not bad to do. Like I said, it's a list of things. Thankfully, a lot of places are kind of like the build your own, and they kind of guide you through the things that you need.
Yeah.
And then from there, and what I did for this little assignment of ours is I just looked at the products that I was going to use. So I actually pulled up Storyline, Camtasia system requirements, and Photoshop system requirements, because those are the 3 big ones I absolutely have. I figured, all right, let's start there and build stuff. But the thing that I like, for those of you who are new, it's arguably cheap. Well, nowadays it's not cheaper, but it used to be arguably cheaper. The big draw for me is the longevity. So when I want to replace something, like I probably want to replace the graphics card, but I don't have to replace the entire computer to do that. I am about to upgrade. I'm about to upgrade my hard drive to something that's on my list, to a SATA, to an SSD, 2 TB SSD.
Woo.
But I don't have to upgrade the whole darn computer to do that.
Yeah.
This cost me $200, and I'm good for a couple of years. I've moved forward.
And
So
the
that's
thing
one.
is,
That's one of my favorite things about building your own.
I think, especially when it's going to be for work,
Yes.
especially as a freelancer, what if something goes wrong? If I know every part that's in it, and I know who it came from, so I can get it replaced if it's actually a functional issue, or if it's just a hard drive, because hard drives do die, no matter how well you treat them, that's a problem. Components will wear out, components will become outdated. Being able to just say, okay, I'll replace it, is a huge benefit. But let's dive in and see what each of us chose. So here's an interesting point. Did you consider a laptop?
I did not consider a laptop.
No, me neither.
Okay.
I'll be honest. I've just seen
Awesome.
Luke post about laptop in the conversation, so I thought I'd throw it out there.
I had to
Personally,
include video editing, and I hate video editing on a laptop. I don't care how good the laptop is.
I hate working on laptops. Even a high... I mean, I own a high-spec laptop. I bought it for doing work on the move. It's pain.
Yeah.
Because they just cannot keep up with the desktop in terms of performance. The screen size irks me. Even a big laptop with a 17-inch screen is a small screen. You know, when you think phones are 5-6 inches now, it's
I have a Dell XPS 13. It's a 4K monitor. It's like 15. It's like 50. It's dimension to a 15:1, but it's still a 16-inch monitor, and it's weird that the math works out. It bugs me how that works. But I don't want to use it is the problem. I just don't. I can't sit and lounge and do. I have to. And that stuff. So no matter how good it is, I just don't care as much. So I use it to script write and play in Google Sheets, and then throw it when I realize that Google Sheets suck. Not sponsored by Google.
Yes, but I think it is a thing that a lot of people face. Whereas if you're self-employed or you run your own business or it's a small business, you get a bit more freedom. Whereas for a lot of businesses, you get a laptop. That's just the way it goes. Or you need to be mobile. At which point, I think there are still some cool options out there. I think especially with as Ryzen 5000, the new AMD CPUs move into mobile, we're seeing much better performance. Because the biggest issue with high-performance laptops is their battery life sucks. Like mine can render videos, but it will kill the battery in like an hour on a full charge, and that's just pointless. It's not a laptop at that point, it's a small desktop computer. So hopefully, as well, we are already seeing better battery lives out of generally they're branded for gaming laptops, but they're also starting to see a few workstation laptops out there. But I mean, all the same basic spec stuff applies. So let's dive into that actually. So Joe, what did you kind of spec out as your, this is the minimum that I would start working with?
Sure. So I kind of did I started with I just really put together the big 5. So I didn't necessarily pre-build. I looked at a CPU, RAM, hard drive, monitor, graphics card. That's ultimately what I shopped for. Like I said, I found a bare minimum, which actually the blend of Camtasia and Photoshop is what got me to the minimum. There's some some requirements that Photoshop has that are actually less than what Camtasia has. So I just kind of picked the higher of the two. Storyline doesn't care. Storyline is actually wonderfully basic because actually I was about to say Storyline's wonderfully basic, and it's not. It's incredibly complicated. So that was a lie. Not going to go there. But like if you're just doing Storyline, you only need you need a 2 gig processor, which you can get on accident nowadays. Memory, you only need 2 gig. Only really need 2 gigs of RAM, 1 gig of hard drive space. It actually works in 1280 by 800 screen resolution or higher. Like, you don't need
Oh God, don't do
anything
that.
for this.
Can you imagine
Like,
working at those kinds of resolutions though?
remember the little mini, like the Asus little with the little
Mm.
Ion processors in there that was cute for like two weeks of, hey, all you do is word processing, spend $300 on this thing that you will never use, to realize that phones can do the same thing. It works for that. It works for that. So Camtasia is looking for a little bit more Ryzen 3 processor or 6th generation i3, so not a ton. Not a ton.
I mean, that's
They're
still. I mean, what 6th generation was? What, we're on 11th now, so that's an
yeah.
old processor to run on
Yep.
now.
This is minimum. So 8 gigs of RAM. Recommended specs are 16 gigs of RAM for Camtasia, and then they're looking 10th generation i5, 2nd generation Ryzen 5 processor. GeForce 10 series or higher. As far as the GPU is recommended, you don't need anything for the minimum specs. If you want to be an ID that's doing projects on your own computer, get a graphics card. Get something that runs on an HDMI monitor. It's just gonna take you forever. Not so. The funny thing, and I didn't realize until literally just now, they actually recommend they recommended is an SSD.
Yeah.
Which I've never seen a product recommend an SSD hard drive.
I mean, yeah. I
So
mean, Windows does.
I
The
didn't know
latest
that.
update for Windows 10 recommends running it directly off an SSD.
Absolutely didn't know that. So for those of you who are
Yeah.
brand new and have no clue what the hell we're talking about, let's take a quick moment and explain what the heck each of these specific stats are. So and I'll do it as I go through my list. So let me go through my list so that we're just not on a tangent forever. So like I said, I started on the big five. When it comes to like your casing and your power units, we'll deal with that later. So as far as the big ones, the big expenses, the real things you really got to think about. So CPU for basic, I went Intel i5, 3.4 gigahertz. You can get it for as cheap as $63. And I have links for all this, so I am happy to link my bill.
What gen's that?
Oh God, hold on, I got it. I have to go look at it.
That sounds like a bargain. I'm hoping it's like 3rd gen. Okay.
So I mean, it is definitely a bargain. You could get by with it. You can go minimum. That's minimum. Camtasia is not recommend, but you can get through okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, $63. If it helps, the Beast is about 600. So we'll do that later.
Yeah.
RAM. Do we want to just say, is like when we're talking CPU, this is why we care? It's how fast things go.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Like if you don't want your computer to try to open Google Chrome and take 5 hours to do it, usually you care a little bit about your CPU. There you go. So it's your engine. So RAM, this is where you get into kind of your a lot. It kind of kicks off a lot more of the visuals. This is kind of like temporary memory. So I can have a whole heck of a lot running open at a time. That's kind of what the RAM's helping you out with. So if I've got Camtasia and I've got Photoshop and I got Storyline or I've got After Effects, and this is where RAM helps. It's not the only factor. 8 gigs DDR3 minimum. I can go minimum on that. $36. 264. Hard drive. I'm a big fan of Western Digital. I've always been a fan of them. Between Western Digital and Seagate, they got a 2 terabyte hard drive that's $50. I'm working on a 2 terabyte hard drive now. You could probably go less. You could probably do 1 terabyte, even half, but you're gonna run out of space so fast. Like again, I didn't want to go what could get you through one project. If you've got 3 or 4 projects, you're gonna want a little bit of space. And then if you want to archive any of that, if you want to keep it for at least a year or two, video file size adds up pretty quick. Graphics card. So most of the time, guys building computers, the most expensive thing in your arsenal is going to be the graphics card. and half the time it's going to be about the price of everything else. Please don't skip on it. I'm begging you, don't skip on it. Graphics cards, the things that it helps render things quicker. It's how I can select things in Photoshop and it doesn't sit there and die. There's a lot of value to graphics card. This also lets you, the graphics cards tend to be what gives you, nicer monitor quality. I use it. I have 2 monitors on right now. They all go through the graphics card. It's just processing visuals. It's processing them well. It is worth the investment. So my little investment, and we were just talking about not NVIDIA. I just looked as everything is NVIDIA on this row. GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. This is a couple years old. It's $300 for the GeForce 10 series. GeForce 10 series graphics. I'm still working off my 1080. I still have that. I got that years ago, and it's fine. I think that's one of those things that you can buy and it's going to last you good 5-6 years. Yep. Lastly, if you really need to be cheap, I like Asus monitors. I actually think they're pretty decent. I highly recommend don't go less than 1080p. I know you can. I know every program's going to say you can go 720p. Go 1080. Just join us in the 2000 at least 10s. $110 for 22-inch. It's not killer, but it's going to get you through the day. I only bought one this time, but we ain't done. But anyway, those are my big 5. Those are my big 5 specs. The price, cool. What's that? 95, 150, 250, 550 on top of case, power unit, other things. That'll probably get you to about $700-800.
Yeah. So we're a little bit apart on our minimum spec here. But I shan't lie, I minimum specifications, or I spec'd mine out really based on my job. So for instance, I know that I'm going to be doing a lot of video work. I know that I'm going to be doing a lot of audio work. And equally, I've done these things on older hardware. And felt the...
So I'll say so let's be fair to that. We'll say I spec'd mine to kind of a basic project that's not too intensive. Like just starting as an ID, you're probably not going to get so heavy into this kind of development. And then you kind of you take that next level. So rock it out. What you got?
I've also done it on the basis of if you're an ID buying this stuff, everything I'm talking about is brand new right now. There are a couple of benefits to that. One being warranty, and 2 being longevity of the product before you need to upgrade, realistically. So for me, I went for a current generation CPU and motherboard. So I went for a Ryzen 5 5600X. So there you're looking at 6-core, 12-thread. Ryzen 5000 processor, which means for the techie people out there, unified cache. Finally unified cache on a Ryzen processor. But basically it's really freaking quick. And it's very quick at handing off between cores.
Yes, we could basically, when we're talking about this stuff and talking about like threads, if you don't know in depth, we're just talking things that make it faster. Like I can explain to you how the air holes in my shoes make the shoe faster, or I can just say the shoe is faster. That's what we're doing.
And this isn't a tech show. There are plenty of tech shows you can go and watch if you do want a more detailed and more accurate look at that. I would add on that I specifically looked at a B550 motherboard. So that is not a top tier motherboard. It's kind of a mid-tier motherboard for that kind of processor. But it allows us very specifically Generation 4 PCIe Express lanes to our storage, which means we've got really quick storage. And I think that's probably the biggest difference between our approaches is I've gone for super quick PCIe-based storage rather than a hard drive, or indeed rather than a SATA SSD. And that's because of the amount of video work that, for instance, I do, or I did as soon as I became an ID. So working in Premiere and DaVinci Resolve, doing that on a hard drive is painful, because just trying to load...
When we're talking about that,
Yeah,
So your benefits are, being able to do something, being able to save, being able to render, being able to just straight up
exactly.
open something that's complicated.
Exactly.
It's a
So I
lot
mean,
faster.
yeah. So for it, I mean, I use the example of the project I've been working on recently. The raw video files were 3.5 terabytes. So you can imagine trying to load that into Premiere. Trying to do that off a hard drive, it's just gonna
No.
die. You know.
Yeah, that's
Um, Obviously, this PC would struggle with that kind of size. But if once you get into the world of really high end video, file sizes get scary, and the speed that your drive works at becomes super important. So the next thing, I guess, on my list for this one would be RAM, 16 gigabytes of DDR4, because DDR3 won't work on the newer platforms. Specifically, DDR4 running at 3600 megahertz. Really important if you are thinking about doing this for the first time. All RAM is not made equal. RAM is quoted for speeds, the same as CPU is. Faster does not mean better. There is a balance between what your CPU can manage and how quickly your RAM can talk to it. Again, it's a super detailed topic, but it's something to be aware of. As a rule, if you're buying AMD Ryzen processors, either 3000 or 5000 series processors, 3600 is the sweet spot. And 16 gig.
That's actually my right now. That's my right now core processor for it. So here's how stupid I was as a kid when it comes to this stuff. And keep in mind, this is when we had, this probably never made it over to you. We had a show called Tech TV. So CNET had its own channel, and we had Tech TV. And then it turned into G4, and it got really bad. I'm sorry, Olivia Munn. But you got a career out of it. Anyway, that's a joke you don't want to look up. Which now you will. But so I didn't know any better, but I was enjoying watching like Leo Laporte talk about all the cool tech stuff. But I, in my don't really care to do any work, just decided to spend $1,300 on an Alienware build, and it was so bad. I swear I spent like, I have to have spent $600 for the case, and everything else was just like within a year it was bad. And I just got started. I think it was just starting with Warcraft. That might be a little too early for Warcraft. I don't remember what I was playing, but like nothing, like it just crashed within a year.
It's because you bought a low-end office PC in a fancy case, because it's just a Dell.
It had an alien face with blue lights.
Yep.
And now I'm looking at my Logitech C920 that has the same blue lights when it says that it's active. And I just now realized that I am traumatized. I am triggered. I need beer.
That will solve most of life's problem. Legally speaking, that was not advice we hand out to people on a regular basis. Please do not blame the ID update for future bouts of alcoholism. Anyway, moving on from...
It was this big. How big is this is about how big my current tower is.
Yep.
This is about how big the Alienware was.
Yeah, so...
don't buy Alienware, guys. Not sponsored by Alienware.
Wow, we are burning through them, aren't we? We got Google, we got Apple, we got Dell. Oh, blimey. But look, we're making a difference. We've changed the way Luke will forever see his webcam.
I'm sorry, it's just the little eyes. And then the fan that kept blowing. Like, you could sit behind it and cool down over the summer.
This is why you don't go to a company that does a really good job building servers for a desktop computer. Those are two very different things. But anyway, in terms of this build, then we've got our 16 gigs of RAM running at 3600. For storage, I went for a Samsung 980 Pro NVMe drive. Only 500 gigabytes. That's going to be running for the operating system and any requirements for like super fast accessible files like current projects. Okay. And then a 2 terabyte Seagate hard drive, just a standard hard drive, for what I would describe as vault storage. Stuff you just need to keep and maybe use later.
So not like SSD, you're just...
Nope, I would use a normal hard drive for general storage. and I would use an NVMe drive, which is the fastest. A Gen 4 NVMe drive is going to be the fastest kind of drive you can get. They look like sticks of chewing gum, and they slot straight into your motherboard. And that is why I was talking about the B550 motherboard. That Gen 4 connection is what allows you to get the best possible speed on that drive. And it just means all your software is going to be installed on that. So you're never going to have lagging. You're going to boot in seconds. You're going to click on something and it's going to open. If you're working on a video file, you're not going to face an hour of lag every time you try and do something. And then when you're done with the project, shove it on a hard drive, because then you can just load it up as and when. That'll also prolong the life of the hard drive. Something to consider is that hard drives, being mechanical, have a kind of lifespan. SSDs being electrical, they work like USB thumb drives. It's the same technology, more advanced version of, but whatever. They have a lifespan measured in how much data you can write to them, so they will still die. No matter what you buy in terms of storage, always have a backup. Always have a 3-2-1 backup in place. So you have 3 copies of everything, 2 local, 1 remote. So other than that,
my Christmas present is my external.
It's good when you get Christmas presents like that, isn't it? But then
I had no clue. She was like, "Don't you want something that, I don't know, you could use?" It's like, I sort of okay. No, you're fair in your frustration here, but I want a little black box that I could ignore and feel safe.
Especially once you start working from home, it becomes so important.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Your file, just your files from I Am Learning, which has been a joy, not sarcastic joy, an actual joy to be a part of. I'm like, I'm gonna need to get this off my machine as soon as I'm done with it.
Yeah, I would say when I first started my business and went freelance and contracting, the first thing I really looked at was how good are my backups. Because all of a sudden, if something happened to my computer, like for instance, if there was a house fire, it wasn't just me that was impacted. Suddenly, I might lose my house and then get sued for breaching a contract or losing data. So all of a sudden, the 3-2-1 backup system really kind of, in terms of my peace of mind, has paid for itself. So the one thing I would mention there, the rest of this build, I actually went for, again, a this generation GPU. I think right now it is worth, if you can find one at retail price, investing in the current line of RTX cards. And I say that purely because they are a big jump forwards from the 20 series was universally a waste of money. You either buy...
I never had to upgrade. I felt so good.
You either buy a high-end 10 series card, anything from the 1050 to the 1080 Ti used, or buy something brand new. Whatever you do, don't waste your money on a 20 series card. So I went for a 3060. And I went for a 3060 because I think for the average ID doing a bit of video work, running everything on maybe 2 to 3 screens over time as they upgrade, you could keep that card for 5 years and not really complain. Which is roughly, I think, how long it's going to take NVIDIA to come out with something that's really going to beat it. On top of that, power supply. Now, I mentioned before, power supply. Power supply is one of those topics that, having worked in IT, having built computers, I'm really passionate about, and it's a weird thing to be passionate about. But let me put it this way. It is the one part of your computer that can explode. Now it becomes serious, right?
That's fair.
Joke aside, it is the part that literally feeds every other component power. So if you buy a crap one, it can break everything in your computer. The good news is power supplies are rated. There's something called the 80 plus specification, and there's 80 plus white, bronze, gold, platinum, and titanium. They get better in that order. If it's not 80 plus bronze, at least don't freaking buy it. It's that simple. It's a measure of efficiency, but also reliance. And this is where kind of there's lots of off brands available, and they're very cheap, and they're predominantly a bit naff. So, for instance, for my entry level build, I said buy a Corsair RM 850. So that's an 850 watt power supply. So power supplies are measured in the watts that they deliver. There are loads of considerations. The RM series is actually 80 plus gold as well. Comes with like an 8-year guarantee. It's well worth the money, but literally that power supply on its own is like 125 quid. It's not a cheap power supply. It can feel like you're kind of wasting money, but it really is important.
It's in my beast build and my right now. Because yeah, for in US that's 135. For us that I was able to find it for.
Yeah.
And then I actually just for basic, I actually did their they've got the 450. It's 65 bucks. It's 80 bronze.
Yeah,
that's it.
And I think in fairness, given the difference in the GPU is the big power draw there.
Yep.
With that older CPU and that GPU, a 450 watt power supply is perfectly fine. The only reason I went to the 850 is that you've actually got you've got a very hungry graphics card going in this, and 850 gives you some headroom. So inside 850, you could in theory upgrade to a 3070 or a 3080, maybe, depending on your power requirements, and still use it. Again, always, I would say if you're going to overbuy on a component, overbuy on a power supply because it can stay with you for multiple builds. I've had the same power supply now for 3 computers over 8 years. It works well. Unless you do something to it, it'll just keep going.
Think about it. I think this computer's 5 years old. I think that's where we're at. She doesn't like me. She's not a fan of me right now.
Not after that.
That is partially your fault.
Oh,
it is also my fault because I've been doing a bunch of podcast stuff, but
that'll do it.
She's due.
So my entry level then runs to purchase everything, including a case and all that kind of thing. It runs at 1,054. So a little bit more, but everything in there is current gen and upgradable. That's the thing. So you've got a mid-range processor. You've got a mid-range graphics card. There is room to improve your core components. You've got 2 sticks of RAM in there, but 4 DIMM slots. So you can expand the RAM as you want to. Same with the storage. The motherboard that I'm talking about in there, the B550 Tomahawk, you've got the option to install another M.2 drive and attach up to 6 additional SATA drives. So you've got room to grow with this PC. On the flip side...
How do you like about monitors?
Oh, so monitors are a funny one. Monitors for me are worth investing in. They will last a long time if you buy good ones. And I'm not saying I'm a monitor snob. It irks me. Yeah, it irks me to work on a bad monitor. So I would say if you are willing to work on quote unquote whatever, you can get an excellent, I can never pronounce the name, but is it Ilyama monitor? The ILYAMA. But they do a really good...
I know it's what you're talking about. I've never heard anybody say it.
But they do a really good 27-inch 4K monitor for about £300. It comes
actually.
It comes with a stand. It's got a USB hub on the back. It does the job.
Yeah. So the ones I've got, I splurged and spent $400 a monitor on the Samsung 28-inch 4Ks, and they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
They're bevel-less, which is also I like bevel-less. I'm a big fan. So for those of you again who are somehow got this far and still have no clue what the hell we're talking about and stuck around for that, sometimes when you see a monitor, you've got it's like an inch and a half border just around it, as if it's like some cute little frame. And then you do something called bevel-less, which does not have that. So I want to say that's like maybe a inch. It's great when I have multiple monitors because I can put them side by side, and if I do have like a timeline that expands across both, I don't have this big 3-inch gap of sadness and nothing that I have to kind of skip. Not to say that there's no gap, but it's a lot easier to get through. Well,
Absolutely.
to say space. I get a lot more screen for the space on the desk that I have.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
those were 400, 420, or 440 a pop.
Yeah, so that's not
Not my
bad.
favorite.
I
My
think
high
that's... Yeah, and I think it does depend on what you're doing. So, for instance, a 4K monitor is a waste of money if you're never working in 4K. Now, I wouldn't go as far as buying it, even on a budget. I would not buy a 1080p monitor. There are what's called a 1440p monitor in between the two. Not
That's fair.
mathematically in between the two, but at least it gives you the ability to, if you were, for instance, to be asked to master a video at 1080p, some 1080p monitors will be fine for that, others will be questionable. So I would say, when it comes to monitor purchasing, consider what you want to do. What resolution do you want to be working at, and then go up one. Because it's better to be downscaling than trying to blow things up bigger than they actually should be. Also consider colour. Colour accuracy is something that doesn't matter until suddenly it really matters. So, for instance, I've got a brilliant little 4K secondary monitor, but I will not do video colour work on it because it's wildly inaccurate. For that, I have a monitor that I bought for its colour accuracy. And that has to be regularly reconfigured and all these kinds of things. But those are the kind of considerations. Monitors really depend on what you're going to be using them for. If you don't care and you just want loads of monitor space, buy like a 43-inch ultra-wide gaming monitor. The colours will be terrible, but you'll have a lot of screen space to use, which actually in most ID work is fine. Because even the... You know, if you're literally just doing standard ID work in Storyline or Camtasia or Captivate, you're not color correcting video. It's not worth the time and effort. So the color accuracy is irrelevant.
Camtasia, please start getting better at that, by the way. I'm begging you. I want to say sponsored by Camtasia, but dang. All right, so here's a question for you. And I'll give you my take really quick, and then we'll do it to you, because naturally in the world of new monitors and bigger monitors and whatnot, there's the luxury of curved monitors. Now, I've seen them and I've played with them. I love the daylights out of them for anything other than work. And then when it comes to work, my personal opinion is they're a pain in the ass because I can't just record a screen. I'm putting a heck of a lot of extra effort and extra lot of work to actually do that. I can't just click a thing that says record your screen, show me the screen. You don't get to just show your screen, you show bleh.
Yeah.
So I don't actually like curved versus not, but I figured I'd ask you, what's your take on curved in the workplace?
By curved, do you mean ultra wide?
Let's go with ultra wide. Yeah, ultra wide curved.
I asked because I asked because I had a curved monitor, and loved it, for instance, if I was watching a film or playing a video game. Hated it for work. But it was a standard, like normal 27-inch 4K display. But it was curved. But it was just a pain to work on. I now have, as well as my secondary monitor, the little one I was talking about, the 27-inch, I've got a big 42-inch ultra-wide, but it's flat, not curved.
Oh, okay.
It's the MSI Prestige one. Again, bought predominantly for its colour accuracy. Because I'm boring like that.
That's your version of boring.
Well, yeah. I love an ultra-wide monitor, largely because I spend so much time working in Premiere and DaVinci Resolve. It's so helpful.
Timeline.
It is all about the timeline, and even when, for instance, you're color correcting, being able to have that much screen so you can see that much detail, because the panel itself, when you've got a panel of that size, you can get to really high resolutions. So, for instance, this is a 5K by 2K display. So it means I can comfortably master 4K HDR content. and say the colors are correct, the resolution is correct, the detail is where it needs to be. Whereas a standard 4K monitor, I might be thinking, I'm not sure.
Hey, we've got some fans. We got just heard DaVinci Resolve. We've summoned. We've summoned.
Is it like like if I say it 3 times backwards, people are going to appear in the? But yes, no. DaVinci Resolve is my when I get the choice. If I'm doing an actual video project, DaVinci Resolve is my my editor of choice, without a shadow of a doubt.
I'm terrible and haven't used it before.
That does make you a truly terrible human being.
I'm awful. Evlosser Knivad. That's how you would say that backwards.
There we go.
It's actually not difficult. Evlosser Knivad.
Well, I'm glad one of us could work that out. That's it. Yeah, the black. In fairness, the company that make it are called Black Magic, so you never know. Ooh.
Oh crap! No, so I'm not saying that again. I'm on 2.
Yeah, no. The main reason for that, in fairness, is that DaVinci Resolve is a tool that's actually made for, I would argue, specifically for video work, whereas Premiere Pro is in the weird position where it's a video editor that was built to be part of the Adobe suite, specifically part of the Adobe suite, which means it faffs around in lots of stuff or requires you to hand off to other things. Whereas, Blackmagic went, we make really great cameras. We want people to stay inside our ecosystem, so let's make a video editor.
I just realized, now that you said that, I've used Blackmagic cameras before.
Yeah.
And now I just connected the dots. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I'm in. I'll bite.
Yeah. And it is also handy to be able to go from Blackmagic cameras to Blackmagic software. Purely because, for instance, they have a format called B-RAW, which is like their version of ProRes, basically. But it doesn't really work It doesn't work well in anything except DaVinci Resolve. Premiere Pro claims that it's compatible, but then you load it in there and it's just like, no, I don't like it.
Nice try, Karthik, by the way. It is Velocir, which is not how you would say that backwards.
Oh,
I'm not gonna say it backwards. That was cute. It's a cute. I'm done. I'm not reading that.
Yeah. But that is a really good point there. There is a free version of it, and in terms, I would say the free version is the equivalent of Premiere Pro. The paid for version blows it out of the freaking water, and it is not a subscription. It is a one-off purchase.
What's that price?
Let me check it, but I don't think it's more than like 300 quid.
Oh, good lord.
This is it. It is. And on top of that, if you're like me, you prefer working with your hands rather than on-screen stuff, then they do all kind of control surfaces that work perfectly with it. So, for instance, anyone that's ever really gone into colour correction knows that doing it with a mouse on screen is painful, whereas having an actual colour control panel in front of you is just so much easier. Here we are. So the entire studio is $295 US.
That's perpetual license.
That is a perpetual license for DaVinci Resolve, Farlight, which is their audio editing software, the advanced DaVinci Resolve color palettes. There's also an engine in there for Resolve FX, which is all like motion graphics and editing, stuff like that. You've got Fusion Color, which is their color grading platform. It's, you get for basically $300, for want of a better thingy, $300, and you've got the entire video editing suite that you're going to need. And
I feel really dumb for not putting effort into this, because I'm even looking at let's do some LinkedIn learning on After Effects just so I can get back into it. And the heck is my problem. I probably wouldn't.
I wouldn't argue for it as a replacement to After Effects if I'm honest, purely because I think doing an entirely animated film in it might be painful. I think just from my personal experience, which is not in any way comprehensive, but my personal experience is that I would use it for adding motion graphic elements to video, rather than creating motion graphic elements as a standalone piece.
That's
But
fair.
I think
I mean, I do
for
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think for most of us in the ID space, especially, that's what we do. Very rarely do we realistically, as much as we might like to think, we animate. You know, as a rule, if we're reaching for tools like Vyond, for instance, or Animaker, we're kind of animating. It's more like someone else has done
Let's
some
talk
animation
about
work, and then
compliance.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I shan't go on I shan't go on a tangent about animation versus actual animation, and why I dislike Vyond with a burning passion. Purely because it discredits animation in the learning space, because that's become the expectation of quality. Whereas, and I'm biased, don't get me wrong, you know, hat in the ring. For instance, I
Yeah,
am
let's take a
learning.
look at your content.
I can't
Let's
take the
look at I
credit
am
for that. It's
learning.
the company that I do that I work for. I am, you know, they do incredible animated content. Um,
Lady.
and you know what? I'm happy to say, you know, for want of a better term, come at me in terms of the quality on it. It's stunning. It's visually freaking stunning.
It's so
Um,
much fun working with that content. I'm not gonna lie. Somehow not sponsored by I am learning. Um, I have. um,
yeah,
it is really fun to look at. I don't feel I as much as I love it, I hope that's not a standard for most training, just because that just doesn't scale to most training programs. I
no,
can't get budget for a damn headset half the time. Um,
yeah, that is
so
very true. Um,
um, but
don't get
my
me wrong.
God, if you could, if even like, I just we could do better.
I
And
yeah,
I agree. I
I
actually agree with
just
you. I'm not actually gonna come at you against Beyond. Because I wholeheartedly agree with you that when you have something like are you familiar with the term kitsch? Is that a thing
yeah,
out there?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it comes across as kitsch. It's like training kitsch. It is absolute garbage, but it's like our garbage, so
yeah.
you feel better about it. Um,
I kind of feel like that's the argument for learning styles. We know it's pseudoscience, but it's it's learning's own special pseudoscience. You know, it's our crystals and homeopathy. Let us hold on to it. Um,
understand is our verb.
oh God, no. Let's not do verbs. Um, that's a whole
I
other
just
episode.
did. I've been a little bit in interview space lately, and I've had to talk a little. Like, please just end this call. Please stop. I don't want to work
Yeah,
for you.
it's I
Um,
think that's one of the joys of being a freelancer, though, right? Those moments where someone goes, "So, how do you adapt your learning to other learning styles?" You can just go, "Yeah, I'm no longer interested in the position. Sorry, bye."
okay, so just a little context for everybody. This is not quite an ID update. It's an I've recently switching over into ID freelance. 2020 and 2021 as far as permanent positions. Just we're just gonna call that a learning experience. That's my euphemism. That's my kitschy euphemism. um, so yeah, I've been jumping into freelance, which means that I get to do a lot more interviews for projects and whatnot. And kind of part of the reason that we actually did this whole chat about tech is because the freelance market is disgusting right now. There is so much work out there. And me as somebody who put a little bit of investment, now that I'm actually doing so many projects, I am so thankful I put even that little investment into a machine that I can have multiple projects going, and I'm not spending 3 hours doing something that can take 20 because the computer just can't handle it. It's really important. So but yeah, now I've been in that space, and I'm talking to all these companies and meeting all these new people who basically went to Wikipedia and said, how do I hire and the first five things were, ask them about Bloom's taxonomy. Um, and it's like, damn it, how much are you paying again? And then we go from there. So that's been a surprising struggle, and I think that's another fun topic for some other time if we still want to get into it, which is,
Yeah,
as the
definitely.
world shifted, how archaic have our basics become?
You do have to wonder. I mean, part of the, I mean, without getting too much into it now, part of the thing is, were our basics ever that well founded? And when you look at some of the, oh well, that's just the way it's always been. Now that's not a good argument. It's just not. One
Yeah, it's why I
research
can't
paper
figure out a
from,
location.
yeah, I mean, one research paper from X many years ago does not a learning theory make, for want of a better argument. Where's
Yeah,
the substantive review over time? Where's the adaptation of an idea over time? And I feel like
yeah,
often there's this adherence to no. For instance, learning objectives must begin with one of 6 words. No,
no,
that was never the point. It's because people want to take these things so literally. Because we want things to be simple and easy, and they're not.
it's a
It's
baseline, and I think, like, the struggle that I've had is that going into big corporate. So I work big corporate, a lot alongside 500 companies. The less work training is to think about, to process, to it's for these companies, it's simply that first hurdle before those people are making money for you. And I think one of the things that has been frustrating me, and why I've kind of enjoyed, is you can't get away with that crap as much, or either if not, you see more of it and then you just leave. Is why are the learning styles so archaic? Why do they matter so much? It's because no company knows how to look at a training program and say you're successful. Nobody has a damn clue how to do it unless you're the training program. But if the training program isn't held to any actual standard that's like tangible and published by random guy, that is community interest, why waste the time? If my director, if my VP of product, because you probably don't have a VP of training, is just interested in how much content did you produce and did people watch it, why do I care about learning styles and adult theory and metrics and I don't care. I did my job. That's a personal pride problem. And that's one of the things that I've learned has plagued those permanent big corporate positions, is why can the training team get away with just being god awful? It's because nobody's paying attention to them.
yeah.
That's it. And I'm not gonna rag on, well, I'm absolutely gonna rag on my last company, but I'm not gonna state the name. So check out my LinkedIn.
But
Um
I don't. In fairness, I don't feel that's also exclusive to them. I know that that's been my experience in
yeah.
sales, customer service, utilities companies. I mean, I'm not going to lie, even working with some unnamed learning companies here in the UK, the focus is in the wrong place.
Yeah.
The
And it
focus is
sucks.
on, are the verbs right? Are we
Yeah.
addressing learning styles? Are we, this big rush to go, are we mobile first? No, because not a
No.
single user is going to access this with a mobile damn phone.
Yeah.
We're focusing
Like,
on the wrong things at the wrong time in the wrong places.
yeah, the last company that I worked for produced zero content in 12 months. There were 12 people on the team. That is a million payroll. Zero content. But because people were watching what already existed and they seemed
Mm.
to be okay with it, we were a hit. We were fine. We were doing great. Are you kidding me? We didn't talk about feature adoption, product adoption. We had no clue what certification. It was mind blowing. But again, nobody's paying attention to this stuff. And then if you are, it's, does this thing meet some sort of learning style, some sort of published theory, some sort of grand idea? And I think getting to it, and you're gonna nod your head and laugh because this is gonna be one hell of a segue. Um, I wish, and I think that with everything happening, God, we really need a resurgence of practical instructional design. We need
Oh,
resurgence of practical training and an appreciation for, screw this metric thing that seems good if you Googled it. How does this help my company? How does this help my learners? How does this help my trainers? And I can show that to other people who don't care about the training aspect because this helps them. I've reduced I've reduced your number of support tickets. I've reduced the number of touches for support tickets. I've reduced the amount of time it takes for you to implement a product. That's what I care. That's practical stuff. Not they hit 4th level Kirkpatrick crap. I don't care. I don't. I just don't.
Oh,
I've been
dear.
asked that so many times. I left an interview. Well, no, I didn't. I
Mentally checked out of an interview.
mentally checked out. I think we talked about it a little while ago. Which for me it was CenturyLink, where I had an interview with somebody who was like, "Can you tell me blooms to do a training?" I was like, no, because I didn't. It was a guideline when I ran out of ideas, and then I ignored the rest of it and just did my own thing again. Bye.
Yeah.
So practical training, guys. And then the recruiter moved on to another company 2 months later. So there we go.
There we go. Hey, Joey, I'm so glad you mentioned practical learning in the instructional design space.
Really? God, I wonder why. How, man? How? Why is that such a big thing for you? That just came out of nowhere.
So to flag this, although Joey's aware of what I'm about to talk about, this was not a planned segue, believe it or not.
I spotted an opportunity, and I decided to take it, which is why it took me till 35 to get married.
Spot the person with a background in marketing. So yeah, I mean, before I dive into my topic, I am totally opening a second beer tonight. I'm about to open an Arbor Midnight Blue Stout. Now this was my backup beer for tonight, and these guys are the ones that are based in Bristol. This is freaking delicious. It is possibly the most delicious stout I have ever tasted, and the design of the can is beautiful.
We booked our trip this morning to Scotland, buddy. So I can steal the car for a day while the wife does girl things with the bride.
I will make sure there are some available.
All right.
We'll make it happen. But that's description-wise, full-bodied stout with flavours of dark fruit, molasses, and roasted malts. Oh, lovely.
I love molasses in beer. I don't like when molasses beer has the thickness of molasses. That's happened.
No, yep, that's when they get the brew wrong. But yeah. Oh, look at that.
But yeah, in stouts, in Belgian quads. Oh my god.
There's black gold right there. Foaming a little more, it's not quite as heavy.
That's okay.
And for those concerned for my health, it is just 5.8%. It's not like the other one. So
yeah, I will not be drinking again. 18 a can, $18 a can, and I bought 3, one for this, and then one for my wife, and another one for me. Happy
Absolutely, too right.
And then I accidentally. I'm so used to, and I love service people. I really do. I'm so used to just clicking the tip button. I always tip. But
that's an American thing, right?
It's an American thing. So I click the 18%. I usually go 18, like 20. I was like, I just bought 3 cans. It's just 18%. I totally forgot that this was for 3 cans. This was $54. So I tipped $9 to pull 3 cans out of a fridge and have them. Oops.
Yeah, that's a heck of a.
You're welcome.
That's a heck of one. Yeah, I guess it's a cultural thing, though, right? Tips are a much bigger deal for people over in the States working in hospitality and service industry because they
don't know how to pay people worth anything. Sea teachers.
Yeah, it's a kind of Let's not get into that discussion, I suppose. We've had that before, and it's suddenly been midnight. Not on the show. I hasten to add.
Stands for income deficiencies.
Absolutely. So tips welcome in the comments.
Hi, Olga.
Hey.
It's good to see her. Her and I are working together on a couple of things. We
I see.
Through this.
Excellent.
It's good to see you.
Good. So I've got a couple of comments that I'll be honest, I don't understand. I'm gonna say Andre. It could be Andres. I work with a guy called Andres, but he has a Z in his name. I don't know. So I just, you blended the beers. No, I had finished one before pouring the next one in. I'm not a monster, I promise. Not the next button from Olga. I don't quite understand what you mean, but
are beer cocktails a thing out there?
They are, but they're enjoyed by the kind of monsters that beer on beer is horrific. I like a well-designed beer cocktail. So if you remember in Mixology March, I had a Stormy IPA, which was half IPA, or well, not half IPA, mostly IPA, then equal parts ginger beer, and then rum on the top.
Barely remember Mixology Month.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I've not watched that episode back.
I watched the end of it to see how bad I was. It got real rough. I made a Manhattan IPA.
Yes.
And I made 4 of them, is what happens. And normally that's not the worst thing, but the IPA. So Manhattan IPA is instead of bitters, you replace the bitters in a Manhattan with an IPA, and the IPA takes care of the bitters. I picked an 18% alcohol IPA.
I remember.
To do that.
Yes.
And then I drank 4 of them, and then I finished the bottle because why do I keep bringing $18 bottles of beer to this podcast? What the heck is wrong with me? Because that was also $18.
So note to everyone, if you want to see what happens when we go beyond the let's have a couple of beers and do this episode, go back to the March episode, have a good laugh at our expense. See, Olga was talking about the tip button rather than not the next button. Absolutely. Do not tick next. Instead, go directly to Patreon and support the IDT YouTube channel. Hey.
There you go. And hey, Karthik, beer with coffee?
Oh.
That's how I get my wife into beer. Stouts. Coffee stouts are a thing. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'm not as much a fan, but I can appreciate them. But my wife was basic and white, so I expected like fruity and things that tasted like wine. I got her in sours and whatnot. And then I switched to the other side of the basic white spectrum and showed her that you can have coffee in beer. And those are your stouts. There's coffee stouts. They're fantastic, actually. There's a lot of great ones out there. So I don't know where you're at. Please feel free to share in the comments. And if I'm ever out that way, we're going on a stout run with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Luke's trying again. Always been into whiskey, bourbon barrel aged.
Oh yes, my friend. Always on the desk. This is what gets me through the week. This, or potentially this. So I have a bit of a problem.
Weren't we segueing into something that you were doing that was supporting the community, not admitting an issue?
I am supporting the community. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be successful as an instructional designer, here is your answer. Here is the secret. But no, that is not.
We should have a different name. The ID update. The inebriated design update.
Hey, we deliberately left it as ID. It could be anything. However,
anyway,
we were segueing into something a little bit, not necessarily more serious, but a real thing. Yes,
we were talking about practical design and how needed it is to be recognized and appreciated in the industry.
Joey, have you ever left an instructional design or learning conference and thought, so what?
Pretty much all the time. Also, where's the nearest brewery?
Yes, those are my 2 thoughts as well. Now, I can't help on the
drink. I need to drink right after learning about this thing that is just attached to something you wanted me to buy.
Now, I can't provide you with beer, or wine, or whiskey, or your chosen alcoholic beverage, but I can provide you with IDTX.
IDTX? What's that? This is not planned at all.
I just want to say, call attention.
Design update.
This is it. I'm seriously impressed with how well Joey is doing in this. Seriously, everyone. Awesome.
The improv delivery update.
That's a great question, Joey. IDTX, or rather the first ever IDTX, is a 2-day event scheduled for the 23rd and 24th of July, where we're going to be discussing all things practical instructional design.
You mean I can get in on the ground floor of all things practical about instructional design? Be a part of the first, what do the cool kids call it? The OG? Tell me more. Give me a hashtag.
Hashtag Tom's not a cool kid, but I assume OG means original.
Yeah, original generation. Hashtag original generation.
Absolutely. So we're going to drop this now and pretend it's not an infomercial for a minute. Yeah. So basically, over the last couple of weeks, we're not drunk.
The incredibly drunk update.
I'm not drunk. You're drunk. Anyway, yeah. So we're getting back into the world of face-to-face conferences, and everyone's very excited about that, and that's fine. Whatever. I hate face-to-face conferences. I'm not gonna lie. I hate other people walking up to me and touching me when they say they want to shake my hand, or people that want to hug, and you only have a professional relationship with them. I'm going to have to go back to restraining myself from beating people to death with the bag of random crap people give me off their stands. So I've decided to put together totally... Exactly. Pens and notebooks and cuddly toys that no one knows what to do with when they get back to the office.
My dog chewed up the last thing that I got from ADT.
That's what happens to this stuff. So yeah, IDTX is basically a totally free event across a Friday and a Saturday. Not 2 working days, a Friday and a Saturday. So at least in theory, people who have actual jobs can attend. Amazing. But it's really going to be focused on practical sessions. So we're talking how-tos, build something with me, workshops that actually give you practical skills, demos of content that's worked really well in people's experiences, panels of people with lots of experience in the ID world. As I mentioned, the best part of all is that it is completely free. It will be completely community created. I'm popping the details in the chat now, where you can both book a ticket and, in fact, ask to speak at the event. In fact, that's come out a complete mess. So let me remove that. Let me post about how to book a ticket now. And then how to speak at the event.
Message retracted. Thomas is gracious enough as he does that to invite me to that. I mean, a spicy one, which brings my marketing stuff into the mix. Which I haven't even told Tom about. I was just like, what would I do? Which is my thought is possible example is marketing your training goals to SMEs. How do you actually get them on board with what you're trying to do so they actually put a little time instead of not talk to you 3 days later because they don't give a shit?
Awesome. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, is you go to a lot of conferences and you see headlines like getting SMEs on board with your training plan. And then you go to it and it's just someone trying to sell you something.
Yeah, read my book, check out my podcast. Here's my 6, it's the life coach funnel.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And what I really want to do is have these really fantastic sessions where people just tell you how to do something. Genuinely, they go through it and they give you skills you can go and use. No models, no, snazzy, or you might get a snazzy infographic from someone, I don't know. I know I've got, I'm super excited about this. I've worked with a guy, obviously Joey, super excited about your session as well. But I was discussing this.
I know my place.
Whatever. But I was discussing this just before we came online with Phil, who's the head of L&D at I Am Learning. But I've also worked with him at Thames Water before this, and I freelanced for him, and he played like a really major role in my development as an instructional designer. He's going to be running an updated version of his design workshop. about how to bring design elements into your learning learning design. He's talking about visual design. He's going to look at things like redundancy in design. He's going to talk about mixed messaging, things like this. Really good practical skills that played a massive role in my development. But now he's going to share that with everyone that comes to the event. Stuff like that, I'm super excited because we're going to hear from people that actually do stuff, not just people that have authored a book that year.
I mean, I don't have to pay $99.95 for something to be delivered over email 2 weeks later?
No, you don't. So literally, the event is free. It's free to speak at. Everyone is welcome as well because everyone has something to share. If you remember, that was the original idea behind what led to this channel, which was the Ideas podcast, was that we always hear from the same 30 to 40 big names at every conference. And don't get me wrong, some of them are really interesting. Some of them haven't actually done anything other than speak at conferences for the last 10 years. And it shows. There you go.
Ani, you were funny, but it's all you do. This book's also amazing, by the way. Life would be easy if it weren't for other people.
Yes, the book's excellent, but we kind of we've got it. So I really want this to be all about the people who do sharing it with other people who want to do, basically. So it's going to go out everywhere after this. We'll put it on social media, but obviously those of you who are here now, you've got a head start. As I said, tickets are free. It's not free to host an event like this. I'm not going to lie to you. So it's going to cost Evolve Learning, my company, money to do. But we're really keen to make the event free for everyone to attend, and specifically to have it on a Friday and Saturday. And I'm not going to say that I had some revelation about this. I was planning a one-day event on a Friday. Then I spoke to John Hinchcliffe for an episode of the Ideas podcast. If you haven't checked it out, it's available on this channel to go and watch. But he actually speaks about his Welcome to Awesome conference that's coming up. And he deliberately moved one day to a Saturday. Because he was saying he remembers when he was earlier in his career and you couldn't get a weekday off to go to a conference. And I think sometimes we kind of forget that not everyone has the kind of workplace where you can go, yeah, I'm going to a conference on Friday. There are lots of bosses that will say, no, you're not, because they don't value personal development. That's the sad thing. So there is a Saturday event. The Saturday event runs late. So it starts at 10 a.m. UK time, but actually runs till 9 p.m. UK time. That's because the last 2 hours of that day will be L&D happy hour. So I will just open the platform up so that everyone can have a chat, get to know each other a bit. Anyone can throw anything in. We can all have a drink together without actually having to be anywhere near each other. Isn't that awesome?
I'm such a social. I can't. I'm a social butterfly. I actually like people, so
yeah, that's.
I'm the wrong. Whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I make out that I'm not. I do kind of look forward to some elements of the face-to-face interactions. Of course, I do. Obviously, looking forward to hopefully meeting you, Joe, when you come to the UK. Because obviously we've never actually been able to meet in person because it's a slightly long walk. But I do think there is a danger as we go back to face-to-face conferences that we forget the benefit of these virtual ones. And it's not just for those of us that do, fear the touch of other human beings. It is actually that someone in the UK can go to the same live event as someone anywhere else in the world. So, we can do this show today because of that virtual tech. I look at some of the virtual events that have happened. The show last year, and the learning conference that came off the back of it, that there was like a 10-week head-to-head competition between learning designers, and then that I was lucky enough to compete in, and then a conference off the back of it. That was amazing. That was an awesome virtual event. The L&D conference that took, it was called the L&D conference, and it was spread out over 6 weeks or something like that. and it was just little sessions here
Cool.
and there, but pieced together as a cohesive conference. Fantastic. And you don't have to choose what you miss or don't. So, like with most of these events, with IDTX, all the events thereafter will be recorded. So if you can't make Friday, for instance, but you are coming on Saturday, good news, you can catch up on Friday whenever you want.
Just make time for happy hour. It'd be great to see you in person and live.
Absolutely, yes, that would be lovely. So yeah,
Hey,
do sign up, do come along, and if you'd like to speak, do fill out the form. Just fill it out properly.
Yeah, I'd love to ask you about the competition stuff. I'm so jaded. I've seen a few of these now, actually. This is it's not quite off topic. We're still sort of
No, go for it.
So I'm really jaded with the idea of do your work as a competition, because as a graphic designer, so I have a graphic design background, everybody, by the way. That's a good way to abuse talent. So what would happen with us, design, here's a logo design, and what you would get is 100 people designing you a logo for free, and you get nothing for it. 99 people would get nothing for it. So I'm genuinely curious, because I've seen a few of these, like, design a course off of something, and then
So
can you share your experience with that a little bit? Because you said you liked it.
Yeah, I mean, the show was very different. No one built a course. You didn't build the end product. What you were actually it was. I mean, originally, there were 48 instructional designers originally, and each round you went head to head, and one of the two of you would win. The other one was knocked out until you got down to one.
Okay.
Now I was very lucky to get down to the final 8, and there were some awesome people in this mix. But basically, each round you were given a brief from a client. So there was the whole thing about what their business is, what the challenge is, what their goals are, and then you could just go off and create a solution. And what you had to come back with was a proposal that you would give to them. And then the people who were judging it, there was a kind of each round, there was a new kind of visiting judge. But the ongoing people were Kim and Kath. Kim, who is the CEO of Bell Vista Studios, and Kath, who is a freelancer under Kath Ellis e-learning.
Oh, I met with her. She's awesome. She's actually the whole reason my portfolio exists. I didn't think I could share my NDA content, and she was like, here's how you actually do it without breaking NDA.
Yep, absolutely. Kath and Kim are it's amazing, their commitment to doing that because that competition, it obviously, it from a marketing perspective, of course it generated buzz around the conference, because basically they ran the competition in the run up to the conference. It was really well designed, but the amount of time it takes to review, for instance, 48 project proposals, and then record like multiple episodes of reviews, because it wasn't like they just went and here's who won. No. Right. On the live show, on the the YouTube shows, they would review each one and talk about what they liked, what they didn't like, what they would change, this kind of thing. And you got everything from, I mean, what did I put in? I put in apps, I put in OneNote documentations, at one point I put in a series of animated videos, a bit like Dumb Ways to Die. They got a real range of stuff in from different people.
Cool.
It was a really good opportunity to test your skills and then see what other people did on the exact same brief, which is something that we never really get to do, because no one else does exactly the same work that we do, right? Every one of our situations is a little bit different, so that was really great. And the winner just got a trophy. There was no money involved or anything. How
much of a time investment was that for you? Like, how much time did you actually spend on that? And was that time worth the experience you got out of it?
I guess it could be argued either way. I would probably put in a day-ish a week for that. Or, well, a day for each one was generally my goal. Sometimes, if I'm honest, it was a little bit less, because I would just run out of time in the day, as you do. But for me, I would say it's probably the single most valuable thing I've done in my career. And I
Okay.
say that
I'll have to give it another
because
look.
I got 3 contracts off the back of my entries into that.
Wow.
Just from people
Okay.
saying, we saw your work on the show, we'd love to work with you.
Interesting. I have to give it another look. Like I said, I am
It's
so jaded
yeah.
from it that I see it and I'm like, oh, you're just abusing people. Okay.
I don't get me
I'll
wrong.
have to
I think if someone says we want you to completely build a learning experience and then give it to us, that's abusive. You shouldn't do that. Simple as that.
yeah,
Whether it's a competition or whether it's an interviewers that do this, I'm sorry, no.
yeah,
There
I
is
did a whole
no reason to say we need you to build something. If the person's got a portfolio, you can see what they can do. If you're measuring their skill set, that's sufficient. If you're trying to get free work out of them, then you're asking them to build something. Just don't do it. Your
yeah, I
job
did an
is not
episode.
worth that much.
I did an episode with Kat Sorbello of the Stella Way. We
Yeah.
talked about that. What are the flags that I encountered during of I think you're getting free work out of me versus not. And I was a little bit different because I didn't mind the build something. I actually did. I said there were 2 flags, but they had to come together, which was the build something and build on a topic in a format. I don't mind build on a topic in a format. Or sorry, I don't mind build on a topic, but if you define the format and the topic, I have a problem.
Okay,
If you say build on a topic and I don't care how you do it, different thing. Build on a format and I don't care how you do it, I don't care.
Yeah.
Those were the 2 flags that connected for me. Of if those 2 come together, you're getting used for. That's just how I saw it.
Yeah. I mean,
I also
I mean,
said this.
yeah.
I
I
also
guess.
said this while I literally took an interview
Sorry.
where I did specific content in a specific format because I was desperate and I was an idiot. I felt real dumb because naturally the contract got delayed, guys.
Yeah, I think there's this thing of, oh, don't worry, trust people, recruiters are on you. It's a bit like the old HR are on your side.
I went to art school, guys. Recruiters are not on your side.
No, literally, do you know, in the recruitment process, the person on your side is you. And if you're
Yes.
lucky enough to have a supportive one, your spouse. That's it. Everyone else is trying to make money off your situation. And once you think about that, everything else becomes clear. I could just see the question going, 1 day equals 8 hours. Roughly, for me, a day is about 8 hours, yes. Sometimes less, though. I know, for instance, that at least one of my entries was put in, like, 2.5 hours worth of work. I should hasten to add, that wasn't the one that I went out on. I can't hide behind that. I went out against some really phenomenal people whose names escape me. But literally, they're the kind of people do you know what? I might make myself very unpopular now. I spent the first half of 2020, I think, yes, getting really angry with everyone talking about imposter syndrome. Largely because I didn't really get it. And then I did that competition and I kind of looked around and went, these are lots of people. As I got through a couple of rounds, I looked around and thought, these are people that I know. Not know personally, but I know their names. Like, these are people whose work that I've looked at or kind of followed on LinkedIn to steal ideas from. And that was probably the first time I realized, oh, this is what people mean. It's not this kind of vague, it's not a humble brag, as it were. It's not, oh, I'm just not good enough to be here. It's genuine. You look around sometimes and think, why are we in the same room? Because you're up there and I'm down here somewhere. And you have that slightly disproportionate view of yourself. So it's the first time I got it. But yeah, no, generally speaking, 8 hours, but sometimes a lot less.
Yeah, I did my interview with Car North during my my quote 95 days of unemployment. Her hired series is a great interview to watch. I wish she did more of it. And then imposter syndrome got me pretty hard. When I left Epsilon, it was the first time something didn't fall in my lap. So I was kind of on my own. I had to really rely on my own. And then kind of like you just said, I'm looking at other people like, why are we in the room together? I don't belong here. I'm the guy outside pounding for day work.
I get that too. I think Kara's a really great example of that. Is that she doesn't view things like that. She doesn't seem to kind of view it as there are different levels of people in the business. There are just people, which
Yep.
is, and I get that from a
Jaded.
from a humanistic point of view that is true. But in a totally realistic world, there are levels of achievement within an industry. Like I'll use for instance John Hinchcliffe as an example. He's a wonderfully personable guy, super friendly. He'll talk to anyone. He'll offer advice to anyone. He is a multi-award-winning international superstar in the ID world. He is, he's the kind of, from my perspective, he's the cool kid at school who's a couple of years older that you wish you could be him. Or at least that's me anyway. I pretty much said this to him at the start of the podcast. I think it's the closest I've ever come to speaking to a celebrity. And I kind of did the kind of that people sometimes do in those situations. And I could kind of see the uncomfortableness on his face. So I kind of had to reel it in rather quickly. But then you speak to him for 10 minutes, and much like Kara, and you wouldn't think they were who they are. You would think they were just someone who started at about the same time as you. They've got a kind of magic ability.
That's one of the things for me that kind of identifies, spinning this back into IDTX and the idea of practical instructional design. I feel like there's a lot of my appreciation for people is when they can really come at me from that perspective. And I think the better somebody is at it, the more they sound like, it's not that you're a celebrity that did amazing. It's just you resonate with the way that I think. And so I'm going to take Kara as an example. I know her pretty well. I know what she's gone through. I love you, Kara, if you're watching this. But
she isn't. She's far too famous to watch this.
Yeah, we chat fairly often because she's a gamer nerd as well, which is great. But when you get into that, there's just people are people. My feeling on that is that when you get to that point, it's a jaded approach to there are people who can get away with crap, and there are people who don't have to, who can't. And everybody who I've ever said people are people, everybody has a actually, and it was not what. And the way that I'm gonna put that together, are you familiar with the Peter Principle?
No, I don't think so.
So the Peter Principle, and let's piss off everybody who's watching this who's a training manager real fast. The Peter Principle is the principle that somebody can get promoted to the point of irrelevance.
Ah, yes.
And I feel like that's something that it runs rampant in training industries. Again, going back to my statement of entirely understand what's. I've worked for so many in the last decade where you can get away with your job because because people aren't just paying, they just don't care.
Yeah.
So even I got to a point where everybody has their own opinion, everybody has their own perspective, everybody has their own ideas, and it was so blasé because that's really me saying everybody knows how to get away with their job in their industry. And that was like a low point of my, do I care about this industry? And I still feel there's a lot of that. Sorry, I'll take that. Sorry,
no, I've totally been there. Yeah, I mean, I admit I very nearly quit being anything to do with the training world, in the last full-time job I had, because I was just so, I don't know, it was a large utilities company. I worked with really great people, but working there made me hate what I did for a living, because I was forced to do it badly. Not even just mediocrely. By the day I left, I hated every element of what I did. I wanted to just delete it all the day I left so that no one could ever prove that I did it.
That's the thing. I mean, as you well know, I've gone through quite the employment journey the last half. And one of the things that I always ask, and I ask people who are like, I'm not sure, my feelings on where I'm at in this company. Okay, let's ask you this question. If you were to leave today, what's the first feeling would you have? Be fear? Would it be fear or would it be liberation? If it's liberation, you gotta go. If it's fear, there's things to work on. And I've had a few of those, just like you, where I knew I was hating the job that I did. I knew I was creating bad content, but it was getting me away with it. And especially again, the last year and a half, I hate so much of the work that I've done. Which again is kind of why I like I am learning, because this is just cool, fun stuff. But I hate that there's no standards. I hate that there's no practicality. I hate that there's no results. I hate that I was working for a product company, a product application organization that did not want to do product training. I was out of scope for them. And I had to focus on growth and and how do I get customers to just enjoy the idea of what they were doing, but not actually teach them how to do it. I loathed that. So when I left, I felt liberated. I was like, thank God, I get to do something worthwhile.
I think this is it. And I think it's one of the reasons why I've said to a lot of people that want to go freelance, for instance, I've said, if you can, try and spend some time working for a learning business. Whether it's whether it's a smaller company like I Am Learning, or whether it's a big beast like Brightwave or Learning Pool or Capita Learning or any of the other big UK companies, or Leo Learning, which is international. If you work for a company that loves learning at its very heart, and that's the focus of its business, you will fall in love again with what it is you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what big corporate organizations sometimes fail to develop in their learning teams, is a genuine love for the process of learning. Because in fairness to them, the process of learning is inherently not profitable. No. In fact, it's usually costly as opposed to profitable. It's only in a very long-term view that you can really see the benefit of it.
I've told a lot of directors and SMEs and straight out saying we do not generate revenue. We protect it. In product application, my God, we protect it. If you're not getting trained, then you're spending hours on basic things that you think the tool should be able to do easily. When renewals come up, you're looking at the time that you've wasted, and that renewal contract is dead in the water.
Yeah.
Training solves that. We fix that problem. SME or CSMs, client service manager, or hours, but support technicians, hours doing something that is static that could simply be delivered. That's payroll hours. That's custom projects. That's free work that's giving away because somebody didn't think that it actually can do. We protect revenue, and that's really hard to get across sometimes.
Yeah. I think that's such. I mean, I'd be interested to hear from anyone as well who is watching if they face a similar issue. Is selling that the value of L&D is not necessarily more money in the door, and I think that is a hard sell. Even if you can put it as you just did, then I think very eloquently in terms of protecting revenue, I still don't think that sings as strong as it makes you money. Of course it doesn't, but you know what I mean. Business is my stuff. Yeah, absolutely. All they ever really see. Sorry, carry on.
But you're so much more interested. If I go to a director, you're so much more interested in. I can make a training that I can sell for $10,000. I can put as a line item for $10,000 of required training to get you implemented, more than I'm going to put $20,000 into the training and make sure that 7 contracts worth $1 million renew next year.
Yeah. And I think
small time.
And that's where my advice kind of comes from. Yeah. I think that's where my advice comes from in terms of working for a learning company if you can. Even if it's just short term, if it's just for a month or 2 months or whatever it might be, because broadly these companies always need freelancers anyway. But you get to really just you get to work somewhere where learning does make money. And it tangibly is the focus. And you can just focus and fall in love with the process of designing solid content that delivers real learning. And then go to a place where you have to sell the value. Because then you can paint the comparative. You can say, well, look, learning may not actually bring in money every time someone completes the course, but let's look at the next step in the story. Let's look at what the person does because of the training they've just had. Let's look at the sale that they close and the referral that sale generates and the sale that comes off the back of that, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I'm looking
It's a
forward
harder
to. I
sell.
really hope that at IDTX there's a lot of people who talk about feedback and how do you actually get feedback that is useful for a training program, because that's something that again, it's did you watch it and did it lead to some sort of badge or certification? And both of those, I'm sorry if you're certification people out there, certifications are garbage when it comes to training. They are not the same thing, and they are too often. And that's like a 15 ounces into a 13% beer in anger. Oh my God. I cannot get over how much I loathe that certifications or training are put together. It's destroyed companies.
Yeah, I mean, we have a big issue with that in the UK, and we have an issue with that is that people will say, "Oh, well, have you got a level?" And I've experienced this. I've literally got to the point where someone wanted to work with me on a freelance basis, and then said, "We've just noticed you don't have a insert accrediting body certificate, so we can't work with you." Yeah, I'm sorry,
So
what?
what? It's a marketing term. It doesn't mean you're good at it.
Yeah,
And
it's real tricky. It really is. And the issue is that I think some of the training behind these accreditations can be really valuable. Like, I've attended some and it's been great. There have been
yeah,
there have been, learning designers with 20, 30 years experience sharing their knowledge. That's invaluable.
yeah,
However, someone who's not been to that might be an even better instructional designer. And I think to focus too much on do they have this certificate or have they attended this course is I don't know. It feels like the learning industry should know better, if I'm honest.
yeah.
Of all industries, we should be aware of how learning doesn't necessarily happen in that way.
Yeah.
There
Practical application.
there are a lot of very highly certified people that talk a lot of nonsense. It's
Our certification program, I don't know if I told you this. Our certification program, I was working for a company, had a certification program for their platform. We had an entire agency that was certified, and we're talking legally defensible. Good if you're going IP. There's maturity in the product. That's the problem with certification, is it shows maturity for some reason. Whole agency of partners that were going to onboard clients took the certification and passed it. We did a survey about basic functions in the platform that they got certified on, and we said, here is a task. What is your comfort level in the task? Not confident at all, not very confident, confident, very confident. Somewhat not very flooded the board, and not very was over 50%.
This is it.
Certified in the platform, certified in it. Like, you waste. That's a whole episode, man. It's a whole nother episode.
Oh, I mean,
10
I know, right? It's
a whole nother episode.
Olga's just come in with a fantastic point, that because we've been through the education system, we think that's what works. And that all the efforts and money get put into education needs some solid justification. I'd agree with that. I think there's I think there's always a big debate, right? Do you need a master's degree? Should you do a master's degree in instructional design?
2 days of that, I was like, I'm gonna get a master's degree. Like, it's a marketing tool.
Yeah, my argument has always been, do you want to do it? If so, do it. If you don't, don't. I don't think. I think the work you gain. Yeah, need absolutely not. Will you get some clients because of it? Yes. Do you want those clients is another question. Because this is an argument I know we've sort of discussed it before, is one of the beauties of becoming freelance or running your own business is the ability to fire clients, or rather not work for them or stop working for them if you don't want to anymore. And I would argue that if someone wants to work with you but won't because you don't have a master's degree, you don't want to work with them. Because clearly they're not interested in the quality of your work. They're interested in ticking a box. And if that's their approach to hiring, what do you think their approach to learning design is going to be? It's going to be tick box, isn't it? Yeah.
Did I tell you I almost got flunked out of college because I went against somebody with a master's degree?
Oh,
Almost got flunked out of college. I had a senior thesis class, and the only credential that that my teacher had was that she had a master's. And that was it. And I challenged her on things of like, here's some tangible things against everything you're saying. And she's like, you do not get to publish this. I will not approve it. Almost flunked. And I succumbed and I caved and I said, I don't really care. So I did something that is really bad and somehow still staved up. Not proud of that.
But I think it's very easy in hindsight to say stand up and be the person that goes against the grain. And we hear that advice. LinkedIn is a prime example. Be different. Be the leader, not the sheep. All these other things. That's fine. But newsflash, that person gets sacked. Because they're difficult to work with or difficult to manage, or they have a negative behaviour in the workplace, or they just fall foul to politics. That's the unfortunate reality of the workplace. And that I have to regularly restrain myself on LinkedIn from commenting on people's posts that are, at heart, they're saying of something that's true. Absolutely be the person to stand up and voice an opinion. But the reality is that, for instance, whether you're right or wrong, if you're, at the bottom of the rung and someone else is the top, are you going to speak up to them? Great if you do, but if you do, what's going to happen to you?
Yeah.
I'm
not great at that myself. I own that. I'm the disruptor. Or continuous improvement is the PC way of saying it.
Cool. I mean, I think the way it was broadly described when I did it was knob. Or something less friendly. I was not well greeted in a lot of meetings by the time I left. But it was because I broadly walked in and went, none of you know what you're talking about. Because you would go to a meeting about learning design and you would find engineers, operations managers, all talking about learner engagement. So they're going, literally, I'm sorry, none of you know what you're talking about. And they go, well, that's your opinion. It's like, it's my professional opinion. There is a difference.
Oh, you're getting into some spicy stuff there.
It's you're an engineer. I won't tell you how to plumb something, but please don't tell me how to design effective learning. But
I had that problem with my first job. Actually, I was a support rep at Constant Contact, and I got moved over to training. The joke that I give in interviews is, I was a tier 1. They moved me to tier 2 because I knew the product very well. And they came to me later and said, "You're really good at explaining complex things to in very simple ways. How would you like to make not enough money to do that full time?" And I said, "Absolutely, I want to do that," because I didn't know. But one of the things that you do when you jump from support customer facing to facing, and God, I want to do an episode. I want to do something on that of what has happened when you switch from customer facing. Your whole world changes. And I came to corporate with very customer facing mindset. So I would always look at what is doing and be like, if I'm talking to a customer about your decisions, I hate everything you've just done. And I was really vocal. And I dug myself into a hole that ultimately forced me out of. I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know how to drain myself.
Yeah.
Man, it's such a mindset.
Yeah, I think I think Olga's on fire in the chat here. So we've got always being a leader, not for everyone. I'd agree with that, and I think it's kind of a fault in the current corporate mindset is that we say that we want everyone to be this amazing person. The simple fact is that for a lot of people, they want to go to work, go home, and that's their career, and they're happy with that. Not everyone wants to change the world, and we kind of have to say at some point that's okay. Because if everyone keeps changing the world, then we've got no stability, and life as we know it will fall apart. Slightly exaggerated view, but even so. But she's also said,
I'm not good at that, but
I know, right? Yeah, it's fine as long as we're in the minority. It's fine. It's when people with these crazy ideas end up in some kind of position of power that things go horribly wrong.
And that's why I hate the Peter principle.
There we go. But it's just the people who say people don't read, so we need audio narration. Keep your eyes open. There is a video going live on IDT. Yes, an actual video, not a live stream, a video. I have done something with my time. I do it, honestly. A video about audio narration. It's going live this week. Yes.
Cool.
And it's basically about the fact that I am so freaking tired about the overuse of audio narration. Not everything has to be read out to people. Most of your employees do in fact have the ability to use their freaking eyes and read. If they don't, why did you hire them? There is a real issue, I think, in this kind of corporate culture where L&D just does what it's told. People say, people don't like to read, so we need audio narration. Okay, we'll have audio narration. No one will watch more than 3 minutes, so everything needs to be 3 minutes or less and in video format. Okay, we'll do 3-minute videos and nothing else.
Oh,
but we know it's wrong. We know it's wrong. We know it's not effective, but no one's measuring, so we don't care, which is the point you made earlier, interestingly enough, is that because there's no tangible metrics, we just kind of go, okay, we'll do whatever you say. And we for want of a better terms, we sell our souls. We sell our professional integrity and say, okay, you know better than me, I'll just do it the way you want it done. Or in other words, it's what the client wants. Whenever you hear that phrase.
And I treat, and in corporate, I treat other teams as clients, and I still do. I'm excited. I'm gonna make a quick plug. I haven't touched it in 10 months because I'm an awful human being, which is Training is Blank. But the last episode that I did for Training is Blank was called Training is Jealous. And it literally touched up on something similar to that, which is if you're it basically literally talked about, like, if I'm at, I'm
sorry Joey, you cut out there and I feel like we missed something important.
We'll try that again. So the episode was about the fact that you as a trainer are always competing against the world of peripheral vision, and you are going to lose it. And you need to be okay losing it and know how to win back for just a couple of seconds. One of the things that I pointed out is I actually have a segment where I'm reading a quote, and then I immediately call out the fact that you read it fast. So what are you doing with the time where I'm still reading it and you're done? And that's that's where you're looking at your phone. That's where you're on a different screen. So I actually connected it to kinetic typography. Sorry. Because I read there's a Ford commercial. That Dennis Leary, who cares who did it? There's a Ford commercial where I read the quote that they did, and I had it flat on the screen. I read it out and said, "You read me, no doubt." But let me show you what Ford F-150 did with this exact same statement, and it was kinetic. It was all kinetic typography. The second you say something, change the screen to show you that. And I immediately point out, like, this is I will. That I'm also paying attention to, timed at the same. It is much different than me simply just vomiting something on the screen and talking about it.
Sorry, your audio keeps cutting out, dude.
No,
I know, right?
Does it keep cutting
we got lots of arm waving, but very little speech, I'm afraid. I think we did get the point though.
Yes. So I'm gonna hope that the point came across. That
absolutely. And what I would say is, if you haven't checked,
I'm gonna check my audio.
Yeah, you do that. Yeah, you do that. If you haven't checked it out though, do go and check out Joey's shows. So he's got the podcast and the blog. Training is Blank. He's got Decks and Drafts, where he talks about card games. If you're a geek like me, you'll be straight over there. It's awesome. There are some really dull card gaming kind of YouTube channels out there. I think, Joey, you take quite an interesting look at it in terms of like marketing, especially. Your episode about the marketing cycle. Yeah, we can't hear you at all now, I'm afraid. You're completely silent. So that's fine.
Because I had the mute button on, and I'm
Good
really
job.
dumb.
But
oh my gosh,
directly on the point of what you're talking about there, and kind of peripheral. I remember a really, and we'll move on from this topic in a moment because our 1 hour-ish show has now been 2 hours and 4 minutes. So we are smashing out the.
We bring over 10% alcohol to the podcast.
This is true. This is very true. But yeah, I remember
I still have feature updates.
Yes, indeed. But I remember someone saying, I want our learning to compete with Netflix. And my response was, then you will lose every time. You will never create... If someone has the option of the latest Netflix series and your slide-based or whatever, quite frankly, based learning material, they are going to choose Netflix every freaking time. It's a lovely idea to say you're going to have this content that's so exciting, people are going to want to do it. It's not the real world. It's just not.
If you want to create content that's nothing more than an escape, go for it. Nobody's going to learn something from it, but you kept their attention.
Spot on. But that's where this over-focus on engagement comes in. We require engagement, yes. Is it our primary goal? No. Our primary goal is learning. It's an improvement of a skill or an output or to improve compliance or whatever it might be. It's not necessarily to engage people. Engagement is a tool that gets them to learn, not the other way around. Yeah.
And this is why damn near every single evolution that has happened since the acknowledgement that the internet can train has been revolved around, well, how does this attack the attention span? That's why micro-learning, nano-learning, gamification, interaction, engagement. People don't want to watch the same thing for 4 minutes. I don't even, even on Netflix, I'm still looking at my phone when something's on. That's why theaters are dying, because you're not allowed to check your phone while... That's not an experience people want.
This is true. People have become, it's interesting because, I obviously it's been a while. I enjoy going to the theatre, not the cinema, but the theatre, where people stand on stage and sing stuff. It's one of the few environments where you do not see a mobile phone. You just don't, because the social recrimination would be so severe. It would be incredible from people like me.
You spent how much and you're still being a jerk?
Well, yeah, basically. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're unfortunate enough to be in a cinema with me when we're allowed to do that kind of thing again, and you get your mobile phone out, I'm the person that totally will say something.
Quiet place?
Because I've paid an exorbitant amount to sit in this uncomfortable sticky chair in a floor that hasn't been cleaned sufficiently since 1993. You are damn well not going to be shining your phone light around while I'm trying to watch this film.
I'm on a bad run of watching movies in the theater lately, so I actually don't mind. Last movie I saw was the new Saw, which was awful, which is Spiral. And then the one before that was Wonder Woman 1984, which was awful.
I mean, why did you go to the second one? Was the first one not enough to say, this is a terrible franchise being started? Let's do another one.
Which one, Saw?
No, the Wonder Woman film.
Wonder Woman? So Wonder Woman was actually the first date with my wife. Sentimental.
Okay, fair enough.
That's it, though.
Yeah. But the second film, right? Come on.
And Wonder Woman's great if you skip the third act, if you ignore all of that. If you throw all that away, if you stop an hour in.
So if you ignore the resolution of the plot line.
If you throw that away, then the movie's good.
I mean, that's never a good sign, is it?
I got married from that date. that's also
Could we argue perhaps that that's more to do with you or your wife?
We're gonna say that's to do with me because you're thousands of miles away and can say that without getting.
There we go. Absolutely. That's but yes, and arguably less to do with the film. Or you could argue that all things are comparative. The film was so terrible, you seemed great by comparison.
Favorite example has been Kill Bill. So Kill Bill Part 1, where she's going up against Go-Go, and there's just a moment where she's got a mace in her head, and you get a very, like, it is so blatantly Quentin Tarantino. So we're all just like enjoying this awesome moment, awesome scene, and then we see that shot, and somebody just blows out, "God bless Quentin Tarantino," and the whole theater's like, "That is correct. That is the correct moment that you get to."
Yeah. I feel like we've gone off topic.
Completely off topic.
Yeah. So on that, with that super smooth transition, let's dive into the technical updates for this month.
Sure.
Joey,
right,
why don't you lead us on this one?
Yes. All right. So we have two, and the first one, not here at the beginning. It starts with an apology. Big apology. Last episode was like 2 days after Camtasia 2021 came out. Like I think we record on Friday. I think it came out Wednesday. I was so excited about 2021 for Camtasia. So many cool things. Man, they really did a great job with features. Bold, italicized, underline features. Because very shortly after, we realized that the initial launch of Camtasia 2021 was an epic disaster. It was bug ridden to the point of darn near unusable. File saving was impossible. The recording your screen, recording anything bad, it would screen even if you didn't want it to. It was pretty rough. So Camtasia 2020, and this is 2 days ago, on top of a massive hotfix on the 29th. Everything. 2 days ago, 26th of May, they fixed a lot of the. This is a very big startup crashing. Let's see, occur when scrolling the mouse. Oh, crash if you scrolled your mouse wheel, it would crash. You would crash when you saved a project. You would record your screen when you didn't want to. There were a lot of problems. I'm sorry for hyping that up. I'm sorry. April's episode not sponsored by Camtasia. June's, please, though, because you fixed a lot of it apparently.
I would say, as someone who downloaded it on your recommendation, the speed at which they fixed the issue is admirable.
That's
considering they were not, some of them were not small issues, and some of them were intermittent. And I would draw attention to the fact that Storyline has had some continual issues since, 2008. That they're still getting round to. It's a great tool, but by comparison, they are not particularly quick off the mark in terms of fixing stuff, or even acknowledging there is an issue. Whereas TechSmith did. They shouldn't have got it wrong in the first place. I'll be honest. I'm a big believer in... They shouldn't have got that
wrong. Some of that was obvious.
Yeah, by the time you release software, and this goes whether you're TechSmith, Articulate, Microsoft, whoever, I don't care. If you're releasing software to public, it should be pretty bulletproof. I don't release a course until it's been tested by several people and been spat at and kicked and still works okay. Why do you not do that with your software?
Yeah, the thing that I'm annoyed with most is that TechSmith Camtasia actually comes in multiple forms. It's Camtasia, and then they have a screen that is a separate app. They treat it as a separate app, and that's where the problem.
Snagit, right?
Thing. Well, there's that specifically for Camtasia, and then there's Snagit. Snagit's a separate product.
Oh, okay.
But the screen recorder app, when you get Camtasia, you get the screen recorder app by itself that will record the file and save it without having to open Camtasia. So if you did my minimum build from 90 minutes ago, that's a great use for that. But anyway, yeah. So they
Yeah.
fixed that. They fixed a ton of it. I haven't actually downloaded re-download the
Sorry,
entire product.
we are losing you a lot on audio, I'm afraid.
Oh,
And
Yeti Blue.
it is
What are we
actually
doing?
it is actually breaking up on the a view into the backstage approach here. It is breaking up on Discord as well. So it is definitely not consistently coming through, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. How are we doing?
We're okay now.
We're okay now. So I'm gonna speak slower.
Maybe that's it.
So
Maybe it's just like
maybe
slow
that is.
down.
I do speak very quickly. So Camtasia fixed a heck of a lot lately. It was kind of unusable. Apps were like the fact that they were apps was struggling. The thing I don't like about Camtasia, which is unfortunate, is if you want the update that happened 2 days ago, you have to re-download the entire. That is just silly. Absolutely silly.
Absolutely. I'm now being accused of muting you. I assure you, I am not muting, Joey. I promise.
I'll own.
I promise.
I'm good. Well, it's okay. It's okay. So that's Camtasia. As I've mentioned before, I really only do the, which is Camtasia, Captivate, Articulate, and unless somebody wants something else. Captivate. I add Captivate because it's really easy. They didn't. Go them.
Shock. No update for Captivate. Stop the presses.
Storyline is still very actively. I'm whatever is going to happen in August is going to be big because it's a forced update.
It needs to be.
So something's happening. Lately, since our last adventure, April 27th, with a lot of fixes. Nothing too major. There was a lot of mobile things. This latest one on the 18th, there were a couple enhancements. So they actually added something new. I'm just going to read this out. Make text easier to read by controlling how it displays when it overflows its bounding box. Allow the width or height to expand to accommodate your text to lock the object at a side or your slide design. So for code, that's what Camtasia did last year.
Yeah, and there's a problem with this. There is a big problem with this, is that it's not very smart. So what it means is if you do have a background image where only a certain proportion of it is okay for text to be on, it's not going to think about that. It's just going to overflow the text box and go over the part of the image where you can't read the text. So what this update should actually have been called is, good news, you can no longer tell quite what your user's going to see.
So Articulate, if anybody from Articulate is watching, how you handle text rivals Microsoft Paint.
Yeah.
Please do better. Please focus. I cannot get over how many strong. It's unreal. It's amateurish. A whole bunch of other fixes. The biggest one being that if you did stream things for some reason, it took forever to publish a storyline file. They fixed that. I don't know. I don't know if Oxy or whatnot. But again, it seems like stuff that Camtasia did a couple.
Yeah, I feel like Articulate's chasing its tail a little bit at the minute. I feel like one of two things is true. They've either got a massive jump forwards somewhere in the bag and they're waiting to release it, and in the meantime, they're just kind of keeping things going, or they genuinely can't figure out how to make reliable software. Because the stuff they're doing now is the sort of thing where you think, really? Seriously? Like, from my perspective, 1,200 quid a year, and now you're thinking about responsive text. 1,200 quid a year, and now you're thinking, oh, maybe you should be able to reliably upload files to a review platform.
You and I just talked about this. This issue. A trigger that changed the state didn't work when the trigger was on a layer. Just talked about how garbage layers are.
Yeah, apparently this is the thing. They just need to.
Please fine tune.
again, I've said it before. Do you know what? I said this in our first ever episode of the ID Update, and I'll say it again today. They are the Intel of the authoring space. That it has been so long since anyone really challenged them for market dominance. They've just stopped caring. And until someone says, here's a globally better product than yours that is capable of producing better end results and is easier to use and is cheaper, they will never fix their stuff. Because why would they?
Too big to fail.
Exactly.
It's the too big to fail problem.
Exactly.
Luke, pleasure, man. Always great to see you. You guys are wrapping,
Absolutely.
you're wrapping up.
I think we're reaching the same point ourselves, in fairness. This has been I think officially been our longest show at 2 hours and 20 minutes. But I feel like it's been a good old chat. We've put the world to rights, and we've gone over a lot of stuff. I don't think there's anything else from a tech update perspective, is there?
Not particularly. Nothing too much that I've seen as products themselves. We are kind of getting into that summer, which is kind of something that usually happens, and then fall happens before the holidays. The holidays is also a little Q1, Q2 massive updates, so that way people get budgets on technology, on things that they can sell. So, but
absolutely. But well, I'll go ahead and plug it in, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please do hit the like button on this live stream / video. Please do subscribe to the channel. Please do subscribe to Joey's channels, Training is Blank and Decks and Drafts, if you are card game inclined. And please do come back again next month for the next ID update. I'm going to add 2 things to the list. Please do get book tickets for IDTX, and please do, if you're interested, book to be a speaker. All are welcome. I just want to make sure we've covered everything that's come up in the chat before we go.
And boss that understand are necessary better than our
Love.
I'm gonna for the benefit of my potential career, just say my boss is right.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for a fact my boss is always right.
Yeah.
If you're watching, that's no, we all know that's not the case.
Sure.
But no, thanks ever so much for tuning in, guys. It's been a real pleasure. Hopefully, we see you all again next month. And if any of if any of you would like to come on the Ideas podcast at any point, I am looking for new people to appear. Drop me an email. Super.
Oh, do I get to do so?
Go for it. Why not?
Sure. I don't really have much. If anybody wants to just chat with me on Training is Blank, I'm more graphic design focused. But I need to add more content anyway, so I should get on that. I really should. I keep using it for my portfolio and whatnot. People really like the stuff, and I just
they were awesome videos, dude.
I appreciate that. I really need to do more. I will do more.
Can you see how professional the end of the show is? Can you tell we've been drinking? Hopefully you all have been too. It's quite late.
We're slowly. I like how our entire plan for the video was we're just talking, and then we start just kind of getting off tangent. The chat just blows up, and it's like awesome.
I don't know what you mean. This was all totally scripted, 100%. Awesome. Well, thank you all very much once again. We will see you all again next month. And until then, have an amazing June. Have an amazing June. Cheers.
Cheers.